Well, hey, all, welcome to the GI Justin channel. I have been following the war in Ukraine because I think it's one of the biggest things that we currently have to think about worldwide consequences as far as any of the other stories that we've talked about. And I think there's some more interesting information coming out about a story we've kind of talked about previously, which is the Wagner Group, which is the basically the backbone of what the Russians are utilizing for their military forces right now. Wagner Group is a well-known mercenary group that has kind of their hands in stuff all over the world, and we've already talked about them in one video. And I'm going to link it up here in the top so you can go back and watch it if you haven't already watched it. But crazy things are happening. So basically, what the news is kind of dropping for us is that the chief of Wagner basically offered to give Russian troop locations over to Ukraine based off of how upset he is right now with what Vladimir Putin is not supplying him with militarily. You know, that's what the focus of the other video is that he basically said, hey, I'm going to pull out of these super contested areas where Wagner Group's doing all the heavy lifting if I don't get some more help. And he didn't get help, didn't get the artillery, the ammunition, didn't get what he needed, and said, all right, cool, well, a couple of days, we're out of here. So basically, you know, Bakhmut is the name of this area, the city that is basically burned out, that is the symbolic center of fighting for Russian and Ukrainian forces. Neither side wants to give it up, and it is just a meat grinder of a fight. So basically, what kind of the way this is played out, so in late January, basically with Wagner Group's forces being destroyed by the thousands, to the point that he's having to recruit from prisons and jails in Russia. The owner of Wagner Group, this guy named Yevgeny Prigozhin, he made this offer to Ukraine, basically saying if Ukraine withdrew their soldiers from around the area of Bakhmut, he would give Kyiv information on the Russian troop positions with which they could use for attack. He would basically give them real-time information about the troop locations and makeup of Russian units, which from a tactical standpoint, if you know exactly where your enemy is and what weapons they have, what weapon systems they have, you can plan around that to attack them. For instance, you know, if you find that you're fighting a combined force of enemy where they've got tanks, infantry supported by surface-to-air missile systems, that presents a little bit of a problem, and you've got to attack that in a very specific way. But if they are troops in trenches with no anti-aircraft support whatsoever and no tanks, now you've got a different story. And now you know exactly what they have and what you can bring to the fight and say, hey, I'm going to attack them with a combined force of tanks and helicopters. They can do nothing about that except get killed. That's great, great intelligence to have. And basically, you know, the interesting thing about this is he's got these contacts apparently in the Ukrainian military who he's maintained contact, I guess is the best word to put it with, over the course of the entire war, even over this period that he has been feuding and fighting with the elite in the Russian military who are not providing him with what he sees as his needs to win his section of the battlefield. Kind of an interesting thing, you know, if you're fighting against an enemy, keeping those backdoor channels open like that, kind of tells an interesting story about this guy and how he's prosecuting their part of the war. And the thing is, the Ukrainians aren't hiding it either. So 2 Ukrainian officials have confirmed that they've spoken with him several times through the Ukrainian intelligence group, which is known as the HUR. So they're not hiding it either. I think they kind of see it as, hey, we'll put pressure on this guy and force him to admit that he's speaking with us. Because what's the worst thing that happens? So Putin gets upset and removes this guy. His army goes with him. It's a private mercenary military. It's a win-win for Ukraine. So apparently he has made this offer regarding Bakhmut several times, and Kyiv has rejected it because they don't necessarily trust that his proposals are legitimate and that he actually has the wherewithal to pull his troops back. And that's kind of been echoed by the CIA and all the smart people in Washington that kind of say, yeah, you know, this guy's kind of a war criminal. I don't know if we should take what he says on face value. But the counterbalance to that, in my personal opinion, is this guy is watching his private military just thrown in the meat grinder and be ground down to absolutely nothing with no support from the military that he's supposed to be fighting for. So, I mean, there's no debating that he's very frustrated about how the fighting is going on in this contested area. And the back and forth in Bakhmut has been measured by, it's very Stalingrad-esque. It's being measured by city blocks, by apartment complexes taken. It's taken a very, very steep toll on both Wagner Group and Russian soldiers because urban fighting is the most difficult type of fighting there is. I mean, our military, which is the best military in the world, had a very serious, difficult time taking cities by force in urban area in Iraq. They say it takes 4-to-1, at least 4 soldiers of yours to every one of theirs to at least hold what you have in an urban fight. And, this guy is getting just frustrated, which makes sense. He's got this military and he's being paid for it. Yeah, but he can't replenish his ranks because they're being ground down. And like I said, he recently said, hey, if you guys don't help me, I'm out of here and I'm taking my military with me. And the Russian Defense Ministry officials, according to some other intelligence that we've apparently gained, are privately wondering how to respond to his criticism of the military and his demanding more resources, which weren't given to him, which speaks to kind of the power struggle between the Russian government and Prozgrin, because he's the one supplying the soldiers. How are they going to say no to him, and how are they going to do this? And the answer there is they don't have an answer, because they know without him, they're losing over 50% of their forces. They're already being, brought to a stalemate, which is kind of what Ukraine wants. And as this happens, they're figuring out how they're going to try to deal with this guy, only to find out that he is having phone calls and in-person meetings with Ukrainian intelligence officials in Africa over the course of this war, and him saying, hey, if you guys don't get this done, I'm out of here. So you've got Russian troop morale. It's got to be low. They're watching their forces be completely unable to do anything they need to do. And now Wagner Group is losing its morale. And apparently, according to some intelligence that we've gained, their fighters are refusing to go into this area because they come under heavy fire and they're sustaining severe casualties. And over the course of that, how do you get, convince somebody to go in and fight when they're being destroyed piecemeal and constantly watching themselves lose friends and allies and other soldiers without the support of the country that's supposed to be helping you? So kind of the interesting wrinkle is the intelligence documents that kind of have been released also suggest that Ukraine suspects that the Kremlin has been aware of his communications with the HUR, which, if they're aware of it, why would they just allow it? I think the answer there is back to, like I said, they realize this guy is crucial and they have to deal with him. They need his military, so they kind of have to accept this stuff, and he's not backing down from it either. He said, and I quote, "Yes, of course, I can confirm this information. We have nothing to hide from the foreign special services. We are still in Africa and talking currently." Okay, so now he doesn't even have to deny it. He's straight up coming out and saying, yes, I'm talking to my friends, nothing to hide, nothing to see here. So I think this leaves Vladimir Putin in a very precarious situation, because you have, Wagner Group, who is his muscle. They're the ones holding things down while Putin tries to figure out what the heck he's going to do with his own military that is apparently in shambles and having a very difficult time fighting in Ukraine, and in a war that was supposed to last a couple of weeks. It's up over a year. So he's got himself in a really tough spot where he's going to have to figure out, how do I deal with this guy? And I think the answer ends up being he's going to have to appease him. And with the rumors that Russia is short of artillery assets and short of the munitions of war, is he going to deprive Russian soldiers in favor of Russian mercenaries? Or does this guy bail and keep funding information to the Ukrainian intelligence service? I think it's a catch-22 for Putin, and I think he's going to have to make hard decisions on how he's going to support his military moving forward. So I want to thank you guys, as I do every time we have a show, where you guys really are making it so much fun for me. I enjoy the communication and the comments, and of course the likes of the videos and subscribing to the channel. There's going to be a little circle down here. You can boop touch that thing and subscribe to the channel right there. So thank you guys so much, and I hope you have an awesome day.